Hey, welcome back to the Cybersecurity Matchmaker, Couples Edition, Power Couples in Cybersecurity. It's the great culmination of all of my dating for marriage metaphors, which is that we get to actually look at the metaphor when it works. So
Awesome.
Right.
this summer every week we've been doing power couples in cybersecurity who are actually married and actually working together in cyber. So today we have Kat and Matt Lee, and it sounds so good together.
It's the only reason we got married, Mimi. It rhymes
really?
phonetically. Yeah,
I know you were both going by that, obviously.
that was it. We're like, I
Yes,
need to find somebody with an at followed by a hard consonant first, right? Like, yeah.
It's the best last name for it. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I know that Kat, this is your first time being on,
Yeah.
but it could be the beginning of something.
Funny story.
Kat and Matt Lee show.
This is her first time ever on camera, as a matter of fact. I have finally cajoled her through your efforts to be in this chair.
Yes.
And so
Perfect show to have you as your first time. Perfect show.
Thank you.
So welcome to live and camera for the first time. That's actually very bold.
That's bold. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. So I want to give you two a chance to introduce yourselves the way that you want to be known. So the legendary Matt Lee, will have you share first what you've been up to. And
yeah, I feel legendary might be overstated, but I'm good with it. I'll allow it. I've got a lot of my friends here: Shell Phillips, Tim Golden, Jason Slagle. If you're in there, pop in the chat, say hello. It's awesome. And you're right, Paul. We do have monosyllabic first and last names. It's the way we did this on purpose. I had to convince my parents to change the last name. But no, joking aside. So I actually am on a mission. I've been on a mission for about 5 years now. And it's this understanding that we build technologies before we make them secure. We build our world on the safety and convenience of a hairdryer and cloth wiring until eventually the house burns down. And I think we're in that stage of our world. And I had this realization in 2018 that if we don't do something to change this, then we won't all have the same virgin experience with technology for our grandchildren and our children. So I actually am blessed to work for PAX 8. You see the logos everywhere. That's not just because I accidentally found a trash can full of PAX 8 clothes. It is because they pay me to spend my time being an SME, learning and driving the body of knowledge that is cybersecurity, working with some of these amazing humans that are actually already in this chat right now.
Cool. Thank you all for commenting.
Yeah, thank you. And so I am blessed to do that and educate MSPs or managed service providers, as well as MSSPs if they choose to somewhat codify themselves different, and that support the SMB community, right? 43%.
It's a great niche. Such an important niche.
Lots of business is needed, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And just waking up to getting sophisticated about all this stuff.
So how do you want to be known to the world? Not to put any pressure on you, babe.
No, but I am definitely here to support you and help drive the mission and just keep you on track.
That's a fair statement. More like a
That is an
Wrangler,
amazing
right? Or a handler.
like a handler. How many wives out there can relate to their job being closer to being a handler than anything else? I think you're in very good company. I would relate to the same for my husband. Oh,
So it's just Kat.
Kat and the guy she's married to. Yes, it is. And Kat has an even better chair. That's true.
She did.
There's all these things.
Yeah.
That chair has probably never been on live LinkedIn. So
it has not ever.
It has not.
Yeah. Mine has a bunch for sure.
So that is a great way to describe it. And I think it's interesting because in some ways it's unique to some of the other couples we've had where maybe both of them are coming from cyber or some kind of Uber management roles. And what I loved about you two, we met at I'm blanking
RSA
on
in San Francisco.
party, but what's Alex's last name? I'm blanking on it. Wow. He's gonna really roast me for this later. He's gonna kill me.
Yep. But yes, Alex.
Alex, the master of all networking, and he does the cyber firesides.
Yep.
So oh my gosh,
It's not Weinert, is it? That's not it. I'll get you Alex's name. You keep going. I'll do the digging. I know who we're talking about.
Anyway, so we met there and we started talking, and I was just blown away by how in sync you two were on how you provide. No, not Alex Farling. Sorry, I think it's Alex Weintraub.
There you
I'm
go.
almost
There we
positive.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So he's gonna kill me because we're good
Yeah, it's fair.
friends,
You
and I'm
deserve it.
just kind of
Yeah.
blanking because I'm nervous because I'm live and all of that. So sorry, Alex. But it was so great. I mean, I was listening to the way you talked about the way you work together, and it sounded like a good marriage, but that you had been able to translate it so perfectly into working
Yeah.
together. And it's actually what inspired me to start thinking about other couples who might be out there who work well together. Because I have a feeling a lot of people think about working with their spouse, and that's the last thing that would work for them.
Yeah.
So the real question is, what makes it work for you guys?
You want to go
We'll
first?
talk about what your roles are, but I want to know really what makes it work. Is there something that you could point to?
I think the biggest thing is we are best friends and we love to do everything together. And then I'm definitely the more calm and quiet and relaxed person compared to that.
Yeah,
That's
fair.
definitely
and it helps.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, right? I'm so
Right.
calm, shy, and demure, right? As most people
know.
assume. Yeah, so for sure. I think for me, what makes it work is, I
It's true.
I talk
Ham and
about
cheese.
I talk about the sacrifice that I want to make a difference in this world, to make something different than we have it today around cybersecurity. What I think makes it work, if I was completely candid, is that Kat and I are best friends. I'd echo that. We like to do things outside of that time together. We like to go to history museums. We like to go and learn things. We like to exercise together. We like to do those things. But I think at the core of it, it's that she believes in the mission. She believes as well in giving of ourselves to raise the tide for everyone, right? And I think if it wasn't for that, she wouldn't have been on the grueling travel schedule, not being paid by someone else, right? Only doing
Right.
this for serving our common mission. So for me, I think the way it works is because Kat's a damn saint, if I was completely candid. But she humors me.
And she's blushing. And
Yeah,
she's blushing.
yeah, just a little bit. But when I have to say, hey, we're going here this weekend, and I know we had plans, there's never been a time when that wasn't okay. And even when I was a direct practitioner and I was saying, I need to work another 26 hours because I'm trying to solve this major challenge and nobody else will or can potentially, that was where it was acceptable and I would be supported. Right. I mean, so I don't think this is just in today's moment. We've been supporting each other towards things for 22 years now. It's been a long time.
So tell us about the journey. I know you've had quite a journey into cybersecurity, Matt.
Sure.
And Kat, we'll get to overlay your journey into cyber because it's pretty recent. But tell us, how did you get into this? And then, all along the way, Kat, you've been there. And I'd love to hear your overlay after. So you started somewhere interesting.
On a warm evening in 1980, my mom and dad, maybe that's too early. We'll fast forward about 20 years.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So
okay, now we know how old you are.
In the
now
definition.
we know.
Yeah. So fair. Thanks for letting me fail my OSINT already today.
Are you that much? Wow,
Yeah.
you're very young.
Yeah, I suppose. So my career started actually when I was 19 years old. I took and passed my Series 7, 66, and life health variable annuities, and was the youngest person in the particular state I was in to do so. And I started as a stockbroker and a financial advisor. I really enjoyed it, but I found myself in a pattern that every 4 or so years, I would either get bored, offended, mentally tired of a certain career. And I had a high enough IQ and a high enough EQ and enough drive and enough willingness to just chew through a wall that I was able to change careers. And so I went from, in the investment world to banking and private investments for Wachovia Bank. I then went from that role 4 or 5 years later, exited and started my own practice and sold that practice to a friend of mine. Then I started buying and selling, doing mortgages around FHA. I'd learned that.
How old were you by this time?
20s.
Early 20s, because we had the boys at that time. And when he was doing mortgages, I was a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just were double dipping, 4 points on each side, right? Making 8 points on a transaction. Yeah. But
when did you have your kids? Now that I would love the back and forth, actually. Why don't we overlay?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the boys came along pretty early then.
Very
They
early.
did. We were
Day whatever, it's
so
legally okay to be married and then
so
have a
we
child
had our
later.
1-year anniversary, and then 3 months later we had our first son.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in early 20s.
And then
so,
less than 14 months later, we had number 2.
yeah.
So this was
We
very
had
early.
one of those.
We couldn't figure out what kept causing it. We got
We
it figured
did,
out now.
very quickly.
Yeah, but at the
Yeah.
time we were having challenges there. But so at the time, Kat was basically taking care of the 2 very young, children as I was doing the banking game, and then left the banks and started mortgages. Did mortgages until 2008, which you can imagine
Okay.
the FHA world changed
Wow.
rapidly.
Mhm.
One of the
Yeah.
things that I
Oh,
had
yeah.
done in that mortgage space was I just
But you
understood.
rode the wave. You rode
I
that
I,
wave.
I
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did okay. I changed out of that and did numismatic and non-numismatic gold. At that time, the economy was dropping. People were selling gold. You could
Mhm.
buy gold somewhere in the 60 cents on the dollar and
Oh,
sell it
yeah.
at 98. So you could make 38 points on 60, which is more than 50 points. And so you could do that for a pretty constant basis. And I did that. And I'll be honest, we went down a really bad path. We started partying and doing drugs
Wow.
and really
Yeah.
ruined a lot of our early financial career at an early time. And I'll share that. I'll try not to tear up, but we were in a really bad state. And at some point we looked at each other and said, we got to survive this. We
Yeah.
gotta move forward. And so we left that lifestyle. We had some money in the bank still. We hadn't completely depleted the mass income. When you buy $30,000 in gold a day and
Oh
you
my
make
goodness.
$15,000, you can really have a lot of fun and look and live lavishly in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. And
And
so I was living that
think
in
that
the
there's,
upper, and it's
and think that
fine.
there's
Doctors and lawyers
Right.
are doing it with me. There's the police chief. There's the right.
Yeah.
And so you're living in that world where, you're kind of lied to in your own brain. And so we left that. And
Wow.
I decided at that time I wanted to do IT. And it was this weird thing where I applied at a managed service provider in the state. And I said, listen, I want to do this. I want to be in IT. And
Did you apply for an entry level role?
yep,
Mhm.
I did.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
That
started in
is
an
the
entry role. Yeah.
single that is something, just to think about the journey up until this point that you've described where, you're starting your new life. And I think one of the things people have a hard time getting out of that kind of life is to think, how could I ever get up from this again
Yeah.
or
Yep.
start
100%.
over from scratch or whatever it
100%.
is. So
And we did. Yeah.
amazing to
And we
hear
took
that.
our 2
So
kids and we moved up and stayed with her mom and dad for a little while. And
To
as
help
we,
wow.
quite a
yeah,
bit.
we got over it, got
Got
through
on
it.
our
And,
feet. And
and we started doing the IT job, and I quickly went from a technician. And I said, listen, I don't know that I could ever not own a company like this. I don't think I can work for an MSP. And my CEO, a guy named Chris Hoos, one of the most amazing humans that probably walks this earth, said, I'll let you put your money where your mouth is. And he even made it very possible for me. But I also understood myself well enough to know that I had changed every 4 years for things that just offended me, right? Something where, for example, someone asked me to fill out a form and kind of cheat the system to get paid earlier. And I said, no. And the guy said, well, if you don't, then
Right.
you're out. I said, well, then I guess I'm out. Have a nice day. It's very nice. I'm principled about this.
Yeah.
And so, short story, as I went through that, he let me buy in. We were under $1 million in revenue. We started growing and growing and growing. We got to 3 and 5 and 6, and then we merged to be 30, and then we grew to 40, and then we finally sold a few years ago. But during that time, I was sitting in every
So
single
that was the company that you sold is the company that you went
started with
into.
in
Yes.
2011. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, stayed through all the changes and mergers and acquisitions and everything we did, and grew to be the chief technology officer of that organization. I guess they call it the director of technology and
Right.
security. And I was in charge of those decisions for about 20,000 SMBs out there. Right, we had
Wow.
20,000 or so end SMB machines, I guess, to put it in more specificity, about 1,000 servers out there, or 1,000 companies or so. But as we did this, in fact, Matt Topper's in the room today, and he was also
Hey,
probably one
Matt.
of the smartest people that I've ever met as well, in compliance and in many things in life, and brilliant guy. But he was a partner of mine that was driving this awesome and amazing company we put together. With, I don't want to miss anybody else. There's 170 amazing humans that made this happen, not me. But at the end of the day, during that time, we bought a company, and I call that company Voldemort. And through this point, I had already been through
I'm
several.
assuming things did not end well.
No, if I'm not going to mention the name, right, that I've already broken the rules, but it's okay. It's the principle. But, we changed the name so we wouldn't actually mention their name during the incident. We changed it during all those things. But we basically took a full ransom of 1,200 machines under our care of the company we'd acquired. And through that effort, I really had this kind of moment where it was all clear to me. And I'll take us back just a little bit. During some earlier years with Chris Hoos, he forced me to go through a life plan. And a life plan, if you've never done one through HTG, is a group that did them. Kat and I kind of sat down and talked about our personal life like you would a business. How do you recharge? What depletes you? What are the things that you need to be doing in cycles so that you can continue to deliver? And one of the concepts that comes out of that is a concept called a HABU, which stands for highest and best use. And one of the challenges I faced was I was a really good engineer, maybe self-ascribed, maybe others would find not the case, but I was really found a knack for it. And I got the adrenaline high of solving the problem for people. I was the hero. You get that one-to-one correlation of being the guy that just saved this. Well, the challenge was I found in my Habu, I was better off empowering others to be that person and not doing it myself. And so that changed into a bit of this educational focus for that, which is a precursor to where we are today in my role and what I do. But during that Habu, it meant I needed to stop being that engineer, become the director of technology, choose better technology in the way we do it, choose better security methodologies and ownership in the way we do it, and therefore empower all those others to be successful. And so I switched into that role. And as we merged, I was in that seat when we bought this company. Unbeknownst to me, they bought a company and vetted it. And even though they had a ransomware event 8 months ago before this, they still bought them. Even though the paint wasn't dry on the lawsuits, even though the things weren't done from insurance and subrogation and all the things that were going to come. And when I brought up my concern about it, they mansplained to me. They said, poor little Matt, you don't understand business. We bought them in just their assets. We only own their risk from a perspective of what's physically on it. And we don't have we had a home harmless against us for the old event. And we have an insurance policy for indemnification. Like, we're fine, Matt. I said, I just want you to understand the risk is in your doors. This is something where I would have advised a different way we would go to market. And within 2 days, we actually had the ransomware event through Soda No Kiwi, or our evil ransomware gang, that hit those machines. And it was because they were still on those legacy systems. And this threat actor, as we found through forensics, just kept coming back every year or every 6 months and hitting them. They had been ransomed 3 times. All customers had been ransomed through their MSP 3 times. One of those while it was under my care. And that put me in a position where and I'm shaking, but I very strongly took a new opinion of how we should go forward as an organization. And I was blessed enough to get to, it's fine. I was blessed enough to get to work with Matt Topper and Tony Miller and a whole bunch of other humans to build this, and Mark Jordan. I don't want to skip anyone, Jason Farmer, but we were able to build a really amazing organization to grow and scale and support and enforce principles of least privilege and enforce things that let us limit the blast radius.
Can I ask, what was the hard line that you took?
It was that we were going to follow principles and change things. Think about this. If you're an MSP, most MSPs give the keys to the kingdom to every one of their technicians. They can do everything. They can do all these things they want to do. They are God mode. They install their own stuff on their own machines. Like, there's so much chaos there. Yeah. And the answer was, we're going to start down this path of saying, no, you're not going to have all the rights. You can't just create a script and run it in the system. We're not going to let you do that without validation. We're going to have change control processes. We're going to take away local admin rights. We're going to limit the rights and the principles of how you access systems. All things that you would think in the enterprise world they have figured out. Well, guess what? Look at Cisco. Look at LastPass. No, they didn't. As a matter of fact, they were letting someone use a home machine, and there were all these gaps. Short story was that loss drove the creation of what I think is probably the closest to that type of an organization I've ever watched be built, and it served its purpose for years. Matt Topper is one of those people. I hope he's still here with us. But anyway, sorry, I'll ramble. But that's why Kat.
That's really interesting. So you took a bold move, and it turned everything around. And also, that's how you dove. And just, if I'm following this correctly, were you an MSP? An IT MSP, and then this is the transition into deep into security and MSSP.
Yeah, and that's a great way to say it.
I see a lot of that. It's interesting because I have seen this in my limited, technical purview. I've seen that, in the let's say SMB world, there's a lot of MSPs and they're being asked to get more serious about security.
Yeah.
And then there's this gap of like, how do we add that extra S and become MSSPs?
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like that may be a bit of your journey.
Well, and I would even go so far as to say, personally, in the SMB space, I don't think there's a delineation in MSP and MSSP. I personally don't know that you can segment those two. In the enterprise
Is that
space,
a modern thing, or you're
yeah.
saying it always has been?
No, I'm saying this is the transition. You're so smart at
Yes,
this. I
that
love you.
makes
You
sense.
pull out the right answer. You're even translating Matt here. Yeah, no. So this is more of a modern push in the sense that you can't protect something if you're not in charge of how it gets configured,
Right.
set up, run, the processes, the procedures. Sorry, Tim, that's a plug for you, buddy. I know Tim's on here, Tim Golden. The process, the procedures, the governance, the way we do things. And so MSP, MSSP in the enterprise world, you have very clear delineations of, I am hiring you to do this service. It comes with these SLAs. Here's what you perform for me. Here's your lane. That's what I want. You're there. It's easy to define an SP versus an MSSP, right? Like I'm doing just help desk versus, in my mind, I'm doing SOC as a service, or, those type of things. And so it's easier in my mind to define that. In the SMB world, we're putting on every hat, and they actually look to you as the MSP and go, "Hey, you're wearing that security hat, right?" And for the last 10 years, we've gone, "Got you." We have AV and spam filtering, but they're everything. They're the general practitioner. So in the SMB space, serving that 500 user and below consumer, the MSPs are going to be forced to do all sides of it. They will have to have secure by design principles and things. They will have to set the standard and say, no, you can't be my client if you're not doing MFA, for a lot of reasons, for the risk they take on from insurance and subrogation. But anyways, you didn't ask me to get up on that soapbox.
So, yeah, no, I mean, that is interesting. I mean, just you're a model for that transition in the industry, and I think that's important and that's interesting.
That's a great call out.
And you got to experience it with a Voldemort involved, and hopefully with secure by design, people won't have to encounter that.
Yeah, exactly.
So Kat, so while Matt was going through this journey, kind of school of hard knocks, right? You were taking care of the boys and being a support from the home. And I want to take a minute to just talk about how empowering that can be as a woman. I have 4 young children, and when they were very young, it made no sense for me to be working. And to think about somebody else trying to find a job or a career that would make it worthwhile for me to not raise my own children. For me personally, that just wasn't the right choice. And I find that as I work with people looking to get back into the workforce after taking time off, it's a really interesting world and experience to take time and to not let people devalue that choice. And I feel it's devalued all the time. So I just wanted to hear a little bit from you about your experience in that, and how you found empowerment and what that meant to you, or anything else.
Yeah, I feel I was really, really lucky because after we had the boys, I was able to stay home with them and raise them. Because, like you're saying, I didn't want someone else raising my kids, and the fact that would cost more than me working, it just didn't make sense for us at all.
Right.
And if she was taking care of the kids, I could always blame her when they were terrible children.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
That's a great leverage point.
No. Oh, that's fair. Thanks, buddy.
That's nice. Okay. Yeah, I had a feeling you were being unnecessarily self-deprecating on that one.
Oh, I thought he meant he was disagreeing that I was an awesome engineer. I was like, I agree. That's fair. I'm actually
no. He's saying you're an awesome engineer.
Oh, okay,
but yeah, so the idea that you would be able to watch. You'd be able to watch and grow your own children.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I celebrate the choice of some women not to, because I understand how it can drive you almost to the brink of insanity. But that was always worth it for me. I don't know, maybe I'm a little crazy, but
yeah,
I didn't mind.
I mean, to me it was worth it. There were some days where it was hard and it was trying, but I mean, I'm very thankful that I was able to do that.
And
did Matt come home with the work, and was it interesting for you, and were you able to engage with that from that level, or what did you do to keep your adult brain satisfied?
with Matt, once he was in IT, it was what he talked about all the time.
Okay, so you had to get on board.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, and it was
So
pretty
talking
rough
about
in
your
those early days.
entree. So talking
Yeah.
about your entree into it, I mean, pretty much from the, because you guys are so close,
Mm-hmm.
it was coming home from the beginning. So you had a long road of getting on board anyway.
Oh
Well,
yeah, and that's with every job he's been in. I've learned so much about all the different things he's done, like when he did security work and when he
Wow.
worked at American Express Financial Advisors. And I mean, it was interesting to learn about all the different fields he's been in.
What's funny now, Mimi, is that when we start talking about, modern breaches, or when I start talking about things, she'll like, oh yeah, that was back with SolarWinds, with Solarigate, right? Like she'll have the
wow.
where it's like she's
You
just
were
heard it
fully in
so
it.
much that she now can
That's great.
be ahead of it. Even it's interesting. So yeah, but
So it's like, if you're going to be a stay-at-home mom and really celebrate it, make sure that whatever your husband does is really interesting. Or because can you imagine if you found it intolerable? I mean, that would be that would have been.
Well, we don't talk
so
about the volleyball that she made me draw on, like with Wilson's face, that I have to like go talk to sometimes when it's too much, right? Like that's why I have this.
Very good idea, Kat.
Yeah, it's.
I mean,
I like
sometimes
Wilson is real, but yeah, no.
So
and what's great now? Oh, go ahead, Mimi. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to ask, is when you started working with Matt, and this is personal, and if you don't want to share it, please let me know and we can move right along. But did you actually get a salary, or were you, did you start kind of just reinforcing so that life could be better?
Not at first. At first, I was still working for a law firm in an accounting department.
Oh, that's right. You were doing accounting at a certain point.
So I was very much there to support him, to support the long hours, the late nights, the overnights, I mean, it was incredibly hard at first, but I was there supporting him. And then I got my chance to work for his MSP. Okay. And I did that for a year and traveled with him. And then realized it was too hard for me to do both.
She's prepared your invoice at one point on a train using a hotspot. So real talk. Yeah.
Right. So it kind of made sense to come on board.
Yeah, it made sense for me to be on board. And then it made sense for me to not have an actual job and then just be there all the time, being able to support and travel with him and keep him on his path that he's supposed to be on.
Which I guess that gets to the now.
Talk a little bit about
right?
that?
Yeah.
You guys, were you both in your partying times, by the way? Were you both partying?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've made every stupid mistake together. Yeah.
Yes.
This has been a menagerie of horrible decisions and positive.
So beautiful. So oddly beautiful. So I mean, is there a way that you guys kind of keep each other in that zone of being your best selves? So hold on, Kat, you're not working now. So you are volunteering.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So first question first, and then I have another question.
Uh-oh. All right. What was the first question? How do we keep each other in check?
How do you keep yourself in check? Matt, you've mentioned that. You mentioned that to me earlier.
It's very one-sided, if I'm honest. I'm the weak point.
I want you to be honest.
Yeah. I'm the more mercurial person in this relationship. I'm certainly the one that would be very passionate about anything I'm passionate about, right? We mentioned chewing through a fence and a wall, right? And so the challenge is, for me, I often am excited about everything and anywhere I can help, not necessarily the right place and the right thing that I should be doing. So how do we keep ourselves in check? For Kat, it's really, as long as I'm doing the things that re-empower her, which are us going to museums together, us having time when nobody is demanding of my time, when we're somewhere nobody's going to know me, or we're not going to have anything that, I mean, I'm a big fish.
It's hard with that beard.
Yeah.
It's hard with that beard.
And the cock eyes, right? Those really give it away. But the disguises don't work, is the point.
So she keeps your life like holistic, and there's the life part and there's the travel part.
Because our kids are now older than of majority age. They're in their own world. And so it's just us. And so, it's this, for the for me, it is two main things. One is, to your point, this recharge cycle, forcing me to do those things that are outside of me thinking about, talking about, driving cybersecurity. That's my world. That's what if I was left alone to my devices, I'd be a little hermit in a corner just doing that all day, every day. And so she helps me focus on the other things and helps me weave those into my persona world, into what I'm trying to do in the evangelism side, but also have those separate moments. And when I say it's one-sided, I don't have, I mean, I don't know. Kat's always like an Energizer bunny. She doesn't ever run out of being on even keel. It's weird. So
That's great.
Yeah. What are your
sounds
thoughts?
like a perfect balance.
She's also finding I'm a terrible partner to work with on camera because I'm very loud and boisterous, and so she's gonna have to cut me off. So
like I
Kat,
don't know that already.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that surprising?
No, but it's always that I'm always there for him to calm him down, to pull him back, to go, hey, let's look at this in a different view, or no, it's time to put all work away and it's time for us to go and do something different. But then it's great because he pushes me out of my comfort zone and really helps me to push myself to where I'll do great things now. Like I was able to do 100-mile bike ride in one day. And yes.
Wow. And that wasn't coming from the calm Kat idea of what we should do as a couple together.
Right. It's not a museum.
I was never wanting to do that, but I mean, and I love that. I love that he helps me be a better person. So I try and do the same for him.
Well, and we've always, luckily, on purpose or even maybe sometimes unluckily, have always liked to do the same things. We'd rather be together and doing stuff together. And so like even motorcycles, I would not go ride my motorcycle if Kat is not getting a motorcycle and figuring out how to ride herself. And so it's been, how do you empower
her? You're really pushing each other. That's that's a really cool way to discuss a healthy relationship, in that you're actually, I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but there's
1 + 1 = 3. You're driving someone to both.
Something like that. There's an energy to it. Like, it's not just when you think of, oh, they have such a nice relationship, when you think of a couple that has a nice relationship and it just seems static and, oh, they're pleasant. But this seems to have a lot of amazing dynamic. And I wonder if the working together, this is interesting. Does the working together drive the personal relationship to be better as well? Almost, because in work there's a bottom line. You can't let things drop.
Here's the weird part about this. I would say, motorcycle. I wouldn't imply one. Yeah, Dom, right. I have like 7 in the garage. Fair, touche. But
okay,
I do things big. I thought we talked about this.
I'm a big guy. And my husband are going to come learn how to drive motorcycles too.
Here's the interesting part about a mission. And I have this same conversation with my employer. I try to have the same conversation very publicly. I work for someone because they are willing to support the mission, and it drives their mission forward as well. But I live this mission. This is a mission that I would fund in any way I could. This is a mission that I would do what I had to do to drive this mission. I feel this is my life definition. So when you have that, what is work? What is work? Where is there a separation? And so when it comes to work, a lot of what Kat and I are doing are, hey, Matt, we need to make sure we're going to be heading out to Erie, Pennsylvania today to go speak at this. And hey, I've got everything packed. We're ready. We need to make our logistics. It's time to end that call so we can get to this. Like I don't know that there's a definition of working together. It's serving the mission together. And I feel like, and you know this, Mimi, because you come from that rabbinical side of things that comes into that. That's a mission.
Good memory.
Right?
Good memory. That was something that we talked about right from the beginning.
Yeah. And I think that corollary is there because if you look back on that moment, were you working? What was work? A call in the middle of the night because one family's splitting up, or a horrific death happened? What was work?
And just for the listeners, one of the things that we connected on when we were at RSA at Alex Weintraub's amazing event.
Yes, it was.
Was Alex Weintraub. Was just how, when my husband was a rabbi, was the time that I was home with the kids. And in the Orthodox Jewish tradition, the rabbi's wife has a role, and the role is sort of this volunteer, but a kind of really empowered volunteer, but also a volunteer with a lot of pressures.
Very important volunteer too in that regard.
Yeah. And it can be taken for granted and all kinds of things. And when I heard Kat talk about when I heard you talk about your role with Matt, it reminded me exactly of my role with my husband John when he was a rabbi, because the more I could contribute, the better his life and his job would be. And so I actually enjoyed not getting paid for that, which was, I was going to ask you if you enjoyed
That was the question.
part where you got paid more or the part where you didn't get paid more. I enjoyed the volunteerism more because I felt super empowered being a volunteer. If somebody was taking advantage of my husband's generosity, I mean, I didn't need to invite them over. If they were really great and they were just so, grateful for all the things my husband was doing, then hey, why don't you come over for a dinner and we'll, Shabbat dinner. So as a volunteer without any obligations, and my only responsibility was to make my husband's life happier and better, and obviously take care of my kids, which I was loving doing. I felt this very surprising. It was surprising to myself, level of empowerment in that volunteerism, because the mission was there. And as long as it was fulfilling the mission, as long as I felt we were being respected as a couple, and as long as my husband had, the boundaries around his personal time and all of that, I felt really inspired to give everything. And then the minute I felt drained, I could pull back. So anyway, yes, we talked about that. It was really, it reminded me a lot. So Kat, did you enjoy the part where you're getting paid more or less than the part where you are the supportive, kind of more volunteer back end?
I definitely enjoy it way more now. It's so awesome to be happy and to be able to choose to be happy in what I get to do now.
Yeah. And it was pretty miserable when she was doing the accounting gig towards the end there.
Yeah.
She that wasn't, I mean,
that's cool that it really
it's true. Liked, but
yeah, I love working with numbers. I loved being an accountant, but it was just, it wasn't where I wanted to be, because I'd rather be with my best friend.
Well, and now her role, and we didn't talk about this much, but I travel, I speak, I do a lot of presentations. I try to do a lot of my own study and knowledge growth as well. And so it's a myriad of different things, but I'm all over the world, right? Like I think there was 146 flights or something last year.
Oh my God. You told me that. That's crazy.
And it was nuts. And so, Kat's role when we're in some of those heavy conferences, I've got 6 or 7 people that I really need to talk to, that I really have promised to either have a counseling conversation session with, or I need to learn something, or I want to help them advance their mission. And I don't want this to sound like I'm being ungrateful for it, but there's a lot of that demand, and there's people that will see me at that conference and go, let's have a chat, let's have a conversation, which is great. I love it. But sometimes there's a balance of that mission and what's serving that next piece.
How many conversations can you have, and how to politely establish the mutual value of those conversations. And
Kat does that. She'll stop and talk to the other party, make them feel heard, and conversate, and slip my time in where she can, but allow me to focus on whatever that principal mission focus point was.
Amazing. Kat truly is. Kat, you truly are Matt's Rebbitzin. That's the word.
That's the term. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna say there's nothing different. I mean, you really you have all of those, all the qualities you bring to the table, which I think is, if I had to be honest, one of these secret things about the rabbinate in religious Judaism is this secret power of how the rabbi's wife can be such an incredible service to the community through how you manage the relationships that your husband has to have. And it's authentic. When it's coming from Kat, it's not like you're sending your assistant over there.
Right.
This is the love of my life talking to my friend about something.
This is an important person to you, and Kat is an important person to the community for many reasons, but also for that reason. And being taken care of by Kat is an extension of being taken care of by you. And that's really cool.
It's weird when you
that
say
the two of you have built that with, I'm assuming, is there a model that you saw that you built this after? I mean, I had a model of the Rebbitzin.
No, it was truly just
people liked her more than me anyway, so there was already a benefit.
They'd rather talk to Kat.
Yeah, this is a win. Like it just happened naturally.
That's
but no,
great.
we just found it to where I think it happened first, like 5 or 6 or 4 years ago in conferences where she was with me, and it just naturally people would gravitate to Kat, and it would, she's always happy. She's
Probably
never
nicer than me.
negative. Yeah, she's way nicer than me. Like, look at my face. I look like a mean guy. Yeah. So I think
That's great.
genuinely though, it served into this where it's Matt and Kat. I mean, and it's strange, and I think sometimes companies don't understand that, and it is something that's weird. But I'm financially in a position where we have no debt. We live on basically the income we make. I'm always traveling, and so it's if we're going to do that, and the mission's going to be from I get somewhere. We have coffee in the morning with someone. That's always a start. Then it's the conference and planned schedules and things like that. There's always going to be some form of happy hour. There's always going to be a dinner after that. And there's always going to be a party after that. And that means from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m., if she was just traveling with me and not part of that action, it'd be 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. She doesn't see me
Do
in 4
you
hours of sleep. And it
do
just
you
didn't.
ever have to educate people about Kat's role in your life? Are there some people you encounter that just can't wrap their head around why your wife is there and why that's
Yeah, I don't want to break
significant?
into that. I think I dwell on the positive that people typically only follow what they understand and only follow what they could correlate to their own paradigm. And they look over at their
Mm,
spouse and go, no way, this is weird. You shouldn't do this. And so I think there is a smidge of education for my friends and the people I know and love. I haven't had any of those challenges. I think people got it from a very early page. I think there's a lot of people that discount it as you might call it codependency, and maybe that's true.
sure.
Maybe there's an aspect of that that's accurate. But
There's healthy
yeah,
codependency and there's
yes,
unhealthy
yeah. But
codependency.
yes, we do have to explain it sometimes. It's okay.
I really appreciate you being honest about that because I think that is something it's a deep issue with when you have a good healthy marriage and there's lots of people around who may not,
In a weird role
and
too, right? Like there's some
in a
degree of
weird
yeah,
role and
yeah.
how that works, and it's marriage and it's working and it's sort of volunteer but sort of and I think that it's important to broach that, and I appreciate that you guys were vulnerable about that because that's probably the most vulnerable we need to
Yeah.
get in the
You don't usually
conversation.
talk about
But
that. Yeah, yeah, it's
you're
fair.
bringing your marriage around for
Yeah.
everyone to see, and not everybody has what you have together, and so it's a way of just being generous around how you talk to people and how you approach your role together,
A
and
lot
I
of
think
people
it's
assume
very
she just
beautiful.
works with me, right? Like a lot of people go, "Oh, okay, you guys work together." No, this is my wife. Oh, the much better half. Yeah, fair.
The work wife.
Yeah. Right. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
really cool. It truly is inspiring. And I think, for anybody who is struggling in a marriage or in a work marriage or anything like that, I think there's so many pieces that we can get from the way that you two have described your relationship. There's so much respect. There is an understanding of differentiated roles and responsibilities. There's recognition that people get personal satisfaction in different places and recognizing that, just lots of respect and love and care, and that all doesn't come naturally. So thank you for being an inspiring couple and an inspiring cybersecurity power couple. um, Thanks for joining us. I usually like to ask about a cybersecurity metaphor,
Sure.
your favorite one, but I forgot to tell you in advance. So if you don't have one off the top of your
I
head,
think it's, and somebody
we
already
can skip.
stole this one, but for SMB, the challenge is getting people to understand a concept they don't want to understand, that they don't have the background knowledge to necessarily understand around most of the decisions made around cyber. So for me, one of the favorite ones has always been many people have done it, but the correlation to a house, right? This understanding of a separation to say, here's a house and you need to lock your doors, but you also need an alarm to detect problems. And you also need to have response, the ability for that alarm to reach out and call police, or have a shotgun in the bedroom or a dog. And, that corollary works really well. It was an
It's
early
a
one.
great corollary.
Yeah, yeah. And people get it because they all have a house. They all have stuff they don't want stolen. They've all seen the bloke
Yeah.
down the street get his car broken into, right? Like, so these are all very
It's the
relevant. So,
best
yeah,
metaphor because you give that metaphor to somebody and they could go for a walk for an hour and think of 1,000
the
different
way they tie.
ways that it
Yeah, yeah,
works.
totally. Yeah,
So that is
absolutely.
also my favorite metaphor. So one last question from the audience is, do you have administrative assistants that help you with all of this? Or because you
No.
guys are so powerful together, you just make it all happen?
Gosh, no, we do not. Let's rephrase. I do not have an administrative assistant where I work. I haven't asked for one. And a lot of that is because I've already done so much of this with her for so many years. It made more sense for us to continue that pattern. But they do have people with EAs for sure. I don't have one. I wouldn't argue that I don't need one, but I also would say we've made it work. And it means that I'm probably sitting in front of a computer with Kat talking about logistics for 4 to 6 hours of my week, trying to plan out where's the next one, where do I need a printing facility to do this, where do I need to ship these things to. A lot of the logistics of my world are hammered out just like this, sitting in front of a
That's
screen.
probably a good argument for the two, two is better than one efficiency aspect.
Yeah.
So I mean, I find, when you have two people, there's just there is such an efficiency. So thank you again. Thank you so much
Appreciate
for
you having
just
us on.
bringing us into your lives and showing us a little bit behind the scenes of how you work so well together. Again, it's inspiring. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank y'all all
Thanks.
for being